Olá, eu sou Katiuscia Sotomayor e este é o Agro América, programa em parceria com o Instituto Interamericano de Cooperação para a Agricultura, o IICA, aqui no AgroMais, seu canal voltado para o agronegócio 24 horas. A proposta é mostrar iniciativas inovadoras e compartilhar boas práticas dos 34 Estados-membros que podem ser replicadas em todo o mundo, na busca pelo desenvolvimento agrícola e pelo bem-estar rural. Hoje, o assunto é o agroturismo nas Bahamas e como os desafios impostos pela pandemia, além dos mecanismos de resiliência e as possibilidades de cooperação com o Brasil. A conversa é com o ministro de Agricultura e Recursos Marinhos das Bahamas, Pintard, e com a CEO e diretora executiva da Corporação de Desenvolvimento Turístico do país, Janeth Johnson. Eles falam com a gente diretamente de Nassau. Hello, welcome, thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, I would like to hear from both of you. How has the pandemic affected the tourism, which is really important to the GDP? After all, you are a tourism-dependent economy, right?
That is correct. The Bahamas has gone through two major catastrophic events, one being Dorian, followed very closely by the pandemic. In both cases, we found that we have had a hit to total production because of the loss of the tourism inflow of guests and the revenue that we often generate from them. In the case of the pandemic, we lost somewhere in the vicinity of $3 billion in terms of tourist spend and the multiplier effect that has had on our economy. So it is quite substantial.
Okay, Janeth, can you tell me a little bit about this then?
Yes, we certainly have been dealt a very tough blow, but we're finding that the market is very resilient. On the occasion when we opened up the economy in June of 2020, we had a tremendous influx of visitors coming in. We have had a consistent set of arrivals that have come in, and now it's looking as though it's going to the pent-up demand that people have had for travel is causing them to want to book and come to the Bahamas. And we're seeing lots of arrivals at the airports. We're seeing a lot of super yachts coming in and live aboard dive boats, etc. So it's been a period of flux for the Bahamas, but we're seeing the return of the visitors.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the tourism. Now, Minister, the natural resources of the country are very limited, right? Would you elaborate on the role of agriculture to enhance, for example, the food security in the Bahamas?
Well, the Bahamas actually has a tremendous amount of natural resources. The reality is that we have in excess of 100,000 square miles of water. And so we have one of the largest and most diverse marine reserves in the world. So we consider ourselves a big ocean state rather than a small island state. And fisheries is a very important part of the food chain. And we are one of the chief providers of, for example, spiny lobster, and of course, scale fish and conch. So again, tremendous resources in that regard. And also that marine environment also contributes to the tourism sector, making us one of the top destinations in the world. And of course, we have attracted tremendous amount of business in shipping as a result of our strategic geography. In terms of the agriculture, we have a substantial amount of underutilized land, and we have a tremendous amount of imports, which provides an opportunity for local producers and others who are minded to invest in the Bahamas to produce a range of agriculture products. We have a food bill somewhere in the vicinity of 1 billion with a B, US dollars that we spend overseas to import what Bahamians and tourists consume in the Bahamas. And we have prior to the pandemic, we had somewhere in the vicinity of 7 million tourists coming each year. So we believe that there's a tremendous amount of potential to dramatically increase Bahamian agriculture production, to take advantage of the arable land, adequate water supplies, incredible weather conditions, and tremendous diversity in the types of soils that we have, because we are an archipelago that stretches from the tip of Florida to the tip of Cuba.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about agritourism then. What are the challenges and the opportunities you seek to rebuild the sector? Minister, you can talk first, please.
Well, agrotourism, it's really a natural fit. We've conducted studies that clearly show that one of the best ways to secure a national economy is to have linkages between the most productive sector of our national economy, which is tourism, and other sectors that have the potential to reduce the amount of money we spend outside of the country to supply that tourism sector. And agriculture and marine resources is a perfect example. And so one of the challenges is to take the easy road in satisfying the demand for food and other items that tourists have. And the easy road is to simply import from other jurisdictions to supply that demand. The wisest or the most advisable route, however, is to increase local production of the items demanded by tourists. In that way, you diversify your economy, you increase wealth within your country, and generate much needed employment. I think the second challenge is that countries often have, as we do in all throughout Latin America and Caribbean, structural issues, and historically leadership would rather go with the economies that have traditionally generated wealth. And in the process, they then miss other opportunities to develop other dimensions of their national economies. And so when there is an external shock, as a climatic event or a pandemic can create, countries then find themselves struggling to find revenue because they have concentrated their efforts in a single area. The Bahamas is pivoting. We are making a fundamental structural adjustment so that we can have multiple streams of income across our national economy, and we would not be so adversely affected by a climatic event, or in this case, a health pandemic.
So, Janeth, can you tell us a little bit about the initiatives that the corporation that you work for, you're working to increase the agritourism sector?
Well, the linkage between our two sectors, the agricultural sector and the tourism sector, is fairly new. We now have an agritourism council that's comprised of all of the experts that we have here in the country. And we have started a number of initiatives that the Ministry of Agriculture is leading. One such initiative is the Atlantis initiative, where we are using some property that the Atlantis had on one of the other islands. The minister spoke about as being an archipelago. And so we're using some of the land that they have on that island to engage some of the farmers to produce for the hotel and the industry and the tourism industry. And so that's one of the key initiatives that's on the docket. We're also talking with a lot of the chefs, the food and beverage directors, and the food and beverage directors in the hotels. To the minister has challenged them to increase the ratio of purchase of local produce from the local farmers. And so we want to see a lot more of that. I think that is being driven by a lot of the demand coming from the visitor, who wants to pay their carbon footprint forward and to have fresh produce on their on their in the menu selections that they make. So on their salads, they would like to have lettuce and tomatoes and other vegetables that are picked from the farm that very morning. Um, this has helped to drive a new enthusiasm among the farmers, and I think that some of the initiatives that the Ministry of Agriculture is taking are going to be very beneficial for the economy and for the local Bahamian farmer, and we're very pleased to partner with agriculture on that.
Minister, would you like to talk a little bit about these initiatives?
Yes, we are absolutely excited, both on a policy front as well as the private sector response to government's policy initiatives. We've mandated that 40% of all food sourced in the Bahamas to feed both Bahamians as well as tourists and other guests to our country must be sourced from local producers. And that if the government is to have the moral authority to enforce this, then 75% of all of the food sourced by various government agencies must be sourced from local producers. We have found that the private sector is extremely receptive, and that is hotels, cruise ships, food stores, both retail and wholesale, restaurants. They are enthusiastic and they've been very responsive. Now that we have market access, it is important to then dramatically increase production in order to meet the market demand. And so we are working very closely with agribusiness persons to ensure that we build their capacity, we sensitize them to the demands in the market, and we point out that those particular things that must be done in order for them to consistently supply what is being demanded at a price point that makes sense and at global quality standards. And so we're excited that we are seeing a shift in terms of the productive capacity here in the Bahamas.
Now, another challenge, aside from the issue of the COVID-19, is, as you mentioned, Minister, the climate change. Are there mechanisms to build resilience?
Yes, there are several key initiatives we have through our policy and planning division, not just in our ministry, but certainly at a governmental level, looked at how we must rebuild in the aftermath of a climatic event. And we have just experienced Dorian, which is the worst natural disaster, certainly in all of our lifetime. And one of the things that have emerged out of our collective discussions is, one, we must build back better. So we must look at rezoning in housing, in where we place strategic assets to ensure that we do not put millions and billions of dollars of investment at risk because of poor choice in terms of location. We've also looked at standard of construction, everything from a greenhouse to a 4 or 10-story building. It's important that we look at the kinds of requirements that we put in place so that we can, in fact, build back better. We're also looking at new technologies that would assist us in development. So in agriculture, we believe it's important to have shade houses, greenhouses that are mobile. You're able to disassemble them ahead of a major climatic event. However, when you do use them, one of the things you accomplish is you extend the growing season of items you may have only had access to for 3, 4, or 5 months to year-round production of those important food items. So the use of technology. We're also looking at new types of, whether it's breed of animal or variety of seeds. Because again, if you have a high salinity or salt content in your soil, you must now pivot to varieties that are more salt resistant, given the tendency of water levels to rise and affect your arable land. So technology is important, and as Brazil has done an exceptional job in terms of the use of sensors. And so sensors have have a way also of predicting some of these climatic events. And so we're headed in that direction. And that's why we believe a strategic relationship with one of the not just regional or hemispheric leaders, but global leaders in the introduction of new technology, such as Brazil, we believe that this would be a wonderful relationship.
Then let's talk about that. Is there any potential cooperation with Brazil relating to agribusiness or agritourism that you are seeking to reach?
Yes, we believe that IICA that plays a pivotal role, not just in this hemisphere but globally, has forged a wonderful relationship between the agriculture and tourism sector. We had an opportunity under the direction of the leadership of IICA to have the head of the UN's World Tourism Organization have a conversation with the Minister of Tourism here in the Bahamas, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar, and myself. And it was really the first time that the World Tourism Organization had a discussion with both Minister of Agriculture and the Minister with responsibility for tourism. And we believe that the Bahamas, Brazil is a wonderful that's a wonderful combo for us to solidify this relationship, to convene a first regional summit in order for us to forge greater linkages between tourism and, of course, agriculture. And so that's one area. The second is Brazil has been a leader in terms of the production and, of course, distribution of soybeans. You're a leader in terms of poultry and a number of important agricultural products. And so we have had a number of bilateral discussions at IICA in Costa Rica, in Rome, against the backdrop of the FAO conference, and other conferences. And so we are interested in collaborating on the exchange of technology and more so really benefiting from the technological advances that Brazil has already made, looking also at what you have been doing in terms of regional exports. I believe Brazil has done an exceptional job in penetrating the international market. And so I believe Brazil can mentor a number of the members of the Organization of American States in terms of increasing market penetration globally, because we certainly need new wealth flowing into our countries. And one sure way of doing that is to increase international trade. And you're exceptional in that regard.
What about agritourism initiatives in the Bahamas? Can Janeth tell me what are the highlights in this matter, for example, local initiatives?
Well, one of the key initiatives that we're working on at the moment is to develop tours, visits to a lot of the farms that we have here in the country. We have a very rich history when it comes to pineapples. And so we want to be able to share that to create compelling scripts for the farmers in the on the islands that have these pineapple fields, such as the island of Eleuthera, which is where most of our pineapples are grown. And recently, the minister revealed that the government was about to assign some land for the growing of the cascarilla trees in the one of the other islands in the southern Bahamas, in Acklins. And so we want to be able to educate the visitor and the Bahamians alike about these resources that are available in the Bahamas. It's said that the oil of the cascarilla bark or the cascarilla tree is very important in the making of perfumes. And so the yield from the cascarilla oil, when it's extracted and sold on the open market, will bring a very high yield to those farmers. And so we're trying to see how we can match that with tourism to get people interested to see what it is that we grow here in the Bahamas, and to have the visitor asking for some of the native products that are grown and cultivated here. On the island of Long Island, they're famous for their mutton. And so having that available on menus. In the marine field, the minister spoke about the spiny lobster. Well, having a festival built around the opening of the spiny lobster season, because we do have seasons for these things so that they are protected. And to be able to combine those very important things. We have a festival called the International Cultural Wine and Food Festival here in the Bahamas, which is a great way to expose a lot of the uh, produce here in the Bahamas with the visitor that's going to be coming to that festival. A lot of people base their visits to the Bahamas around the time of the festival so that they can come and sample what we have here in the Bahamas from Bahamians and foreigners living here in our country, domiciled here, and sharing their cultural heritage with the Bahamians and the visitors that come to visit. And so we know that we also have a Brazilian embassy here, and we hope to get them more involved in the process. And So there's lots of opportunities, but most of all, we want to see a lot more of the tours developed. We're working very uh, feverishly on that. Um, in the past, we've been known for our sea, sand, and sun. But now people are wanting, the visitor is wanting to do more land-based tours. And we feel that we have some very exciting offerings in the agritourism field.
Perfect. And then, Minister, you gave us a few remarks about cooperation. So let's talk a little bit about the Agro Village project and how it relates to IICA's Fab Lab. That is a strategy based on digital agriculture, and that means to increase technological and digital capacities. How does the Agro Village work? Can we say it is a sustainable food and agriculture model that would transform the current way of producing, processing, and consuming food?
Yes, the Cabinet of the Bahamas approved the development of smart farms put in the same geographical area to develop various types of agriculture products, both fruits and vegetables, as well as livestock, and some value added products. The beauty of the cluster of smart farms is they get to share a bubble. In other words, to create a biosecure area where all of the companies that will work in this area must cooperate. They will work in a cooperative way in terms of sharing scarce resources. So one, we want it to be solar powered. Secondly, it will have its own water system. It will have its own packing houses where items that are produced will in fact be packaged for marketing purposes. They will share dry, cool, and frozen storage. And most critically to your question, they will share access to best practices from around the world. So we are very much interested in working with IICA and the Food and Agriculture Organization, both of whom have already committed to assisting the Bahamas in developing this Fab Lab, an area where agribusiness persons would have access to the best and most current information from world leaders, both in terms of countries, NGOs, private companies who can provide information to assist us in scaling up our operations or introducing new dimensions to the agriculture offerings in the Bahamas. And so we're excited. We are breaking ground this month on the Agro Village in one of the islands in the Bahamas, in New Providence, where Nassau, the capital, is located. We are also collaborating again with IICA and Microsoft so that we can also introduce the weather station that is being developed, a sophisticated irrigation system as well. And so we are really optimistic now that we're going to be able to plug the data gap. We will collect data on the front end of the operations, all of the inputs required to produce, and we will collect data on the back end. What is the yield? what kind of revenue is being generated, because to the extent that the private sector is aware of the potential of the agriculture sector, we expect to see greater inflow of investment in this sector that has been challenged in terms of having data. The other thing that's very important about the Agro Village is that it will also enable us to mentor and guide these agribusiness persons to scale up their operations to a global stage. And Embrapa in Brazil can play a pivotal role in this regard. And so we have had discussions about how do we benefit from technical assistance from that powerful institution that you have in Brazil.
That's really interesting and it's great, but unfortunately our time is up. So thank you so much for your presence, CEO e diretora executiva da Corporação de Desenvolvimento Turístico, Janeth Johnson.
Thank you very much.
And thank you again for your time, Michael Pintard, ministro de Agricultura e Recursos Marinhos das Bahamas.
Thank you very much. A luta continua.
No AgroAmérica de hoje, o assunto foi agroturismo. Você pode rever este programa e também outras entrevistas no nosso canal no YouTube. Aproveite para seguir a gente nas redes sociais, @AgroMaisTV. Continue com a programação do AgroMais, seu canal voltado para o agronegócio 24 horas. Obrigada pela companhia. A gente se vê.